installment of Weeping Words, in which Biggie and I discuss various topics Doom related. Tonight we're going to concentrate mainly on reviewing the new My Dying Bride album called Feel the Misery. As you'll no doubt figure out later, in the setting up of this interview, we actually forgot what the album was called, but we managed to scramble and figure it out. So
it's one of those details where you spend the whole time reviewing the individual tracks and then you think, oh, wait, what is the album called?
No, you're setting us up now, because what if we talk cuck about the tracks?
Anyway,
Anyway, here we are on
as if we aren't going to talk cuck anyway.
On a sultry December afternoon in Africa. I feel pretty bad because we should be sitting here in the gloom drinking a glass of red wine. Meanwhile, we're sitting here in baggies and the mandatory flip-flops, not that you can see, but take my word for it. And we're drinking ice cold beer because it's as hot as fuck. So, without further ado, League of Doom issues.
Yes.
Announcements.
Before we get into the details behind the album review, was one final announcement concerning Symphony and Furnace 3, which will be kicking off on Saturday the 12th of December at Hectic on Hope.
Or as I like to call it, the Slag's Head.
I hope all of the listeners out there will be coming through to take a listen and see what the
feel the misery.
About. Yeah, no, exactly.
Come through and feel the misery.
Probably going to be scorching hot, so
wear your flip-flops.
Yeah, exactly. So I think to kick us off, there might be a few listeners out there who don't have a full-on history of or knowledge of My Dying Bride and who they're about. So Malcolm, why don't you just kick us off and tell us a little bit about My Dying Bride, who they are, and let's try not to get into too much details surrounding the lineup changes, but we'll get to that later.
Because I'm inclined to wax lyrical about that, which I love.
Yeah.
As in the previous podcast, Paradise Lost can do no wrong in my eyes, and even less so can My Dying Bride. So this is a very unbiased opinion. The history of My Dying Bride, or at least the brief synopsis, came together in the grey moorlands of northern England and is literally the incarnation of miserable music. They are the kings of everything morose, and they've been doing nothing but benchmark doom for 30 years almost.
And take it in a completely darker direction to what it had been previously. It's quite important.
Well, yeah. They kept on getting more and more moody and atmospheric. The more they sort of moved away from the original death metal roots and started incorporating more sort of grandiose gothic accompaniments, they just really forged a sound which was as miserable as fuck, but as majestic as fuck as well.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. I think one of the things that instantly made My Dying Bride stand out against a majority of the bands out there, because there were bands we were using at the time, but the majority was the use of keyboards and violin and poetic lyrics, and just tackling subject matter which wasn't necessarily always discussed at the time, and that being
it was everyone was kind of a lot more metal and aggressive, and they took on a rather more poetic and emotive kind of, especially lyrical, sort of look at things.
Yeah. So My Dying Bride started off in the early 90s, around about 1991, and originally their sound, as we said, was quite death metal orientated, but they slowly evolved, Malcolm.
Yeah. They, after a number of member changes, sort of like 6-7 years into their history, they kept on experimenting, kept on pushing the boundaries, kept on sort of becoming more moody and atmospheric and whatever, until the point, and fairly naturally for any band that was pushing the boundaries, sort of went over the threshold. At one stage they brought out an album called 34.788 recurring percent, where a lot of people felt that they had gone too far into new territory and was regarded as an avant-garde album. I thought that there was some very bold attempts at refreshing their sound, but a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's like Paradise Lost Host."
But there's a point to the song, to the album title, was that's what they said is how complete they felt the album was.
Yes.
So
And anyway, it deviated sufficiently from the My Dying Bride sound for a lot of people, and it was, well, probably their least popular album among the diehards. After which they lost Mr. Calvin Robertshaw.
Yeah, and they also went, to go from touring and producing albums year after year and experimenting and then losing a band member. They went on a very much justified hiatus for a couple of years.
Well, it wasn't the end of the world, but as you do when you lose a sort of one of the predominant motivators in your band, be it direction or music or whatever. The guy, Calvin Roberts, actually produced 34.7. So when he left and he had to be replaced by another guitarist, it was, I think that they just took longer to get back into the swing of things.
Yeah.
And I find that the material from then on, up until now, was a little, as amazingly fucking incredible as it was, lacked that extra little dimension of imagination and so on. But we'll get into that later.
Yeah, I think we'll get into that. I have a slightly different opinion to that because
obviously
well, whilst I love the older stuff as well, I think still to me, Song to Darkness, Words of Light is the most My Dying Bride album, and it was something completely different, and I feel that Calvin not being there had a huge point to that. So I think
do you not think that it has something to do with when you're at that susceptible age and then you're exposed to the thing for the first time? I would say that Turn Loose the Swans is their classic, just because that's the first one I heard and fell in love with.
Yeah. No, well, it could be, but the first My Dying Bride song I ever heard was The Cry of Mankind, so that doesn't really count in my opinion. So
I still have bruises and lacerations and sort of calluses on my right hand from the first time I heard that song.
the longest. And
it was The Cry of Mankind.
All right, so since we got up to where they are now, let's get going into Feel the Misery. So,
well, the first thing we have to note is that it heralds the return of Calvin Robertshaw as the other guitarist and producer.
After 14 years of leaving, 14 years of being away, and the last guitarist was
Hamish Glencross.
Yeah. You would have expected almost the sound to have to change, and I feel that the album definitely did change. So
I think it benefits from his return in very subtle ways. Like the My Dying Bride sound is still there, but the way that you can see his hand in this, the guitar harmonies are slightly more subtle. I think that he's allowing Sean McGowan a little bit more.
Who's the violinist, by the way?
Yeah, free range on what he does. He's brought him to maturity as a musician within the structures of this band.
Overall, My Dying Bride, for the last couple of albums, I felt has gone through a sound evolution. From the point when they switched over in A Line of Deathless Kings to being less focused on the growls and more focused on the clean singing. I mean, that album had no growls in it whatsoever.
Almost none. And
it had a slight different style. I felt that each individual album or EP that they brought out swung in this weird, polar opposites, where there was either too much of one thing or too little of the other.
They were compensating.
From vocal style, from keyboard to guitar to violin. There wasn't like this natural harmony, and I felt that in this album, for the first time in a long time, there was the right amount of each individual instrument played at the right time. There was a much more of a natural balance.
And I think that's what Calvin, as a producer, brings to the band.
Mm.
And for instance, you take For Lies I Say, Sean McGowan's out of his depth, and he's experimenting with shit that is, you're sitting there going, what the fuck are you doing here?
Mm.
But, lovely album. Obviously, I love the album.
Yeah.
But I thought that he's just really blossomed on this one. Be it that he was allowed to sort of do a more... Maybe he just feels more at home after a couple of albums.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think in every band, especially one that's been established for so many years, if you come in and you join it, it's going to take a while for you to settle
And the same with Dan Bullins on drums.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the most wonderful things about this album is that when there's a slow, bleak, no guitar part, we don't hear the CME drum pattern. Because that's happened on every album up to now.
Exactly. I think we'll get to that in a little bit when we go into the details of each one of the songs. But I mean, once again, that was a crippling factor for any drummer that came into My Dying Bride. I felt was that how do you top Rick Meyer on drums? It's like
that's like saying how do you top Martin Powell on violins and keyboards?
Exactly. It's just well, that's My Dying Bride. That's the sound. I have to play like that. I can't do my own thing. And the next very important fact, which I think will lead us straight into discussion surrounding the first track, is the death of the death of Aaron Stainthorpe's father.
Stainthorpe.
Yeah, Alwyn. Yeah.
Not Alwyn. It's not the Chipmunks. It's My Dying Bride.
His dad's name's Alwyn.
Oh no! What?
Yeah.
I was talking about him. Not
Yeah.
that. Anyway, so right into And My Father Left Me Forever, a suitably morose chunk of music, particularly lyrically. However, I'm going to take this opportunity to point out that Aaron Stainthorpe, who I regard as possibly the most eloquent lyricist of our time, who has written some of the most beautifully bleak passages of prose ever, starts off this album with the immortal words, "I tied my children to a dying horse." Now I've looked it up. I thought there was some mythology behind it. I thought it was metaphorical for something, and there's nothing. And I just was like, what's the man on about?
I think from a lyrical point of view in this song, it's definitely a personal song, and
it must be
definitely, and every line, every sentence would have a meaning for him, and maybe anybody else might not necessarily fully understand it. I think the lyrics in this song are absolutely amazing.
No, they are, except for that one line.
That one line, yeah,
it's
true.
Mystifying.
It is a little bit mystifying as to what he's talking about there, but I think he just no matter it's kind of hard to say this, but no matter what he says in a song, you think that okay, there must be something. He's not gonna write that or say that for just saying
clearly,
it, and it automatically instantly works. It's like pre-approved. Check.
I mean, he gets away with "I tied my children to a dying horse," and everyone goes, "Oh my fuck, deep, brilliant."
But it could obviously be a reference to the pale horse called death, maybe something.
I was thinking Trojan vibes. Maybe he was starting at the beginning of his life.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Look, I mean, the song itself, musically,
definitely one of the best.
I find it to be instantly engaging. The album starts off, it kicks in, it's insistent, and it just grows and grows, and it becomes this great song. It's got fantastic instrumental interplay.
Exactly.
It bobs and weaves, and it's awesome.
I think that there's a very important thing we touched a little while ago on the drumming, and I think in this song, this was one of the first tracks where I think it's towards the end where there's a slow drum beat and you sort of expect the Rick Myers sort of style, and it was the first time it's something completely different, and
you just break down, and it's actually quite cool.
Yeah, and I felt like this overall there was the sign that the drumming was going to be something slightly different to what we would have expected, and fucking awesome, to be honest.
And you get this overwhelming feeling that here are 6 individuals who are gelling.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Everything is now interlocked, in place, and because you can hear the proof of the pudding is always in the eating. These guys have now done a fair amount of albums, a fair amount of tours. Obviously, Calvin being back shakes up the dynamic a little bit. But that is a fucking cohesive song.
Oh, definitely.
It is throughout. It just builds and is just one of the most... It's a great opening song for an album.
Yeah. I do feel, though, I mean, the song is extremely emotive and powerful. And obviously, you can imagine what, the circumstances, what kind of effect it would have had on the band. But I almost feel, when I read the lyrics, on my notes, I wrote them down, and I wanted to maybe read them out, but I can't even read them out because they're just so fucking, dreadful. I could have wondered
that would take us hours.
If the band, if it's too depressive for the band, if you know what I mean, something that they couldn't perform for a while.
There's no such thing. We're talking about My Dying Bride. First of all, the greatest band name of all time for doom metal.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Second of all, what do you mean too depressive for the band? Okay, maybe too emotive for Aaron to perform.
Exactly, that's
on
what
a certain level, but Greg's done it. Aaron can do it. The brothers Kavanaugh in Anathema have done it.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I'll tell you what, out of all 3 of those acts that have written something for a parent that passed away, One Last Goodbye will always be the greatest song ever written. But back to My Dying Bride.
Yeah.
Should we go on to Shiver in Empty Halls?
Yes. I thought this was what a flippin' amazing song. I mean, it comes in with such a powerful beginning, and it feels to me like the most old school My Dying Bride track of them all.
I'll give you one of the most old school. My thought is the last song was the most typical My Dying Bride. What I loved about this song is My Father Left Me Forever has no guttural vocals in whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it's almost like Aaron's been for singing lessons.
Yeah.
Because his sustain and his tonality is better than any other album we've heard up to date. I don't know if someone's pushed him or whatever, but his actual singing
is far better.
Is on a whole new level.
Yeah.
And then in comes to Shiver in Empty Halls and hits you right between the eyes with his guttural roar
and the double
his
bass,
really heavy guitars.
It's just going and you can't help but bob your head along.
You get hit in the stomach and your solar plexus goes up into your throat, and then you can feel the swelling of tears, and you want to beat your chest, and it's just the kind of thing you want to get from My Dying Bride.
And then the song breaks down into near catatonic Biggie pace of doom, and it was like funeral doom plus My Dying Bride. I was like having a fucking
isn't it the most wonderful thing? I think that they've under-delivered by about 5% on most songs. There have been filler songs on albums up until this point, and I don't know if it's that little magic dynamic that they've been missing. I don't know what it is. I've loved all the albums, like you said, but I just find that on this one, once again, you got Sean McGowan and Dan Mullen stamping their authority on the song. They're actually blossoming. It comes out really well. And then the most wonderful thing about this song, it just up and down and peaks and troughs, and it takes you on the whole emotional gambit. And then right when you think it's finished, what do? They come in with this sinister little acoustic nursery rhyme lick, and you're like, fuck, man. I'm back in high school watching that horror movie with the kid and the mist and all this Frere Jacques shit that I can't remember.
Yeah, the thing is,
it's eerie. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. I mean, the fact is that Aaron always he loves his biblical imagery, and in so many of his songs, he swings between either polar opposite, and in this particular song, you cannot obviously look towards the darker side. And I mean, where he says, for those of you who exist, I lay for you 3 numbers 6.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just,
It's creepy, eh?
But like with this little nursery rhyme.
Well, that's
sort
what
of
makes
thing,
it so
it's-
creepy.
It is beautiful. Unexpected.
But I mean, expanding on the lyrical theme that you touched on, it's once again typically My Dying Bride.
Yeah.
He sings only of tragic loss of life, tragic loss of love, and tragic loss of faith.
True.
That's what
True.
he's dealing with.
True. I mean, it's just. I don't know. I could go on and on about the lyrics within this song because I felt they were the strongest, definitely.
You see, we are Paul McCartney and that other bra.
Don't dare! Don't dare speak about the Beatles. Don't dare speak about the Beatles.
Was it Michael Jackson or was it Lionel Richie?
Well, you can call me.
No,
MJ,
it wasn't Michael Jackson or Lionel Richie. It was Stevie Wonder, bitch.
No, he was with Michael Jackson. They had the little album together.
Menage a trois.
Yeah.
No, right? Because we are going to disagree because the next song is the best song on the album.
Without a doubt.
By miles.
It's my favorite song of the
It's
album.
my favorite song on the last 4 albums.
A Cold New Curse is the track.
Stunning.
It has got such catchy riffs. Oh my word!
If you thought the previous song went through the gambit of emotions and heavy versus light, this has got all the dark and shade that you'll ever need. It absolutely is the best of My Dying Bride, good and bad, light and dark, somber, aggressive. Fuck, it's got everything.
And I mean, okay, we the way it starts off with the single steel string guitar going into that distorted melody and coming into the dual melodies, it just felt so quintessential. My Dying Bride.
The interesting thing about this song is they never repeat a riff. They actually start off with something and they play it through to its completion, and then the next movement starts, and then the next movement starts. So you go from all this glorious guttural growling, and then it breaks down into this bleak, stark kind of despair.
Yeah.
And then it builds up into the next thing, but there's no repeat at all.
Yeah.
Which I actually quite enjoy because it builds up and builds up, and it gets more and more.
It builds up and builds up, and just when you think it can't get any more,
Sean Vidal comes up with the greatest orchestration ever written at the end of a song.
It sounds like a movie epic soundtrack.
Hans Zimmer, eat my ass. Because the last riff cements itself, and then what do you know? This orchestration comes in subtly, and it's long chords, and then he comes in with this beautiful playing, and it just rounds off this epic song. And you sat there in your car with goosebumps, and the chick in the traffic is looking at you funny when she's not looking at her phone, kind of thing. Yes, because I'm like in the car.
She's looking at you funny because you're reaching over some tissues, you know.
Yes, because I have tissues next to my Batman bobblehead on my dashboard.
So I think we definitely in agreement. I mean, that's my favorite song of the album as well. It was great. The next song, "Feel the Misery."
It's an obvious choice for a first single because
it's the
got
easiest.
the hook.
Yeah, for me it was, the easiest song to get into. If on your first listen,
it's comparable to "For You" off "Like Gods of the Sun."
Exactly. So your first listen of an album, that's the song you're going to remember. That's the one that you're going to take home with you, and then you're going to think, "Oh, that's the best song on the album." Then you'll listen to it 2 or 3 more times. Then you realize
absolutely fuck all wrong with the song, except like one of our fellow members of the League of Doom pointed out. It was that whole "feel the misery." I love the misery part of that.
Yeah.
But that whole long feel, it's almost like his singing teacher said, try and push your long vowels.
I don't know, hey. I really liked it.
I would have loved the music though, going dun dun dun, feel the misery. But that's just me. I'm not much of a songwriter, you know.
Yeah. I loved it. I thought it was perfect. I mean, I can't say much for the music video. I didn't like
the music video. Is, like what happens when you get stranded in a gullis.
Yeah. but I thought on my first listen, after listening to it a few times, A Cold New Curse has the best orchestration by Sean McGowan, but I felt originally that this song was where his ability sort of peaked. Because anybody can have, like, piqued my interest, or rather say. Because anybody in an album can write one or two parts and you think, oh, that's cool. And you think, oh,
It's
yeah,
fairly consistent over the whole album.
And it got better and better and better. And for me, on my first listen, when I got to track 4, I thought, wow, okay, this guy's got it now. And he's cemented his role in the band. And to me, the take-home musician within that song has to be him. I mean, it's.
Well, actually, he shines in a lot of them. The next one.
Yeah. Well, this is all obviously no disrespect to Martin Powell in his.
If you're still alive, Martin, I owe you a beer, mate.
So okay, and I think this is probably where
this is a good point to get into the next one.
The next one.
This is where Sean actually fucking really.
The next 2 songs I want to tackle together, because this is where you and I are going to disagree.
We are going to disagree horribly. Can I start?
Go for it.
A Thorn of Wisdom. It's an exercise in restraint and patience, because it starts off with a hypnotic, haunting, beautiful piano line, and then another one that slides in underneath it, and then it just builds ever so slowly and ever so subtly, and eventually it's got this throbbing bass line, and then this church organ sort of comes in and sits underneath it, and the whole time it's just a build. It's like the breakdown build up in a typically My Dying Bride song, but they've started from scratch, from nothing, and they've built it up to a big end, but they've taken like 8 minutes to do so. Ordinarily, I'm a huge fan of that sort of indulgence. In this case, the individual pieces of music are stunning on their own, and strung together they have a certain effect. My problem with the song is that it captures almost like a claustrophobic lyrical feel, and you can feel it's uncomfortable. And this is the song where I find that if I was ever to sort of fault Aaron Stainthorpe, is, like I said, he's an eloquent lyricist, and when he gets it right, no one can touch him. But he very much often tries to stick a square peg in a round hole. I think that there's an uneasy phrasing in this song. And the other issue I have is when the guitars eventually come in. I'm a guitarist, hand to heart, I'm biased. Fuck, man, they could have just come in with a bit more heavier, because it was kind of reedy
I mean, for me, right, I always say a good album comes in with 3 or 4 kick-ass songs to whet your taste buds, right? And that's like your initial gut feel of the song. Then you solidify someone's feeling. Maybe you have a filler song, maybe something to change the mood slightly, and then you must come back with something awesome. I felt A Thorn of Wisdom and I Celebrate Your Skin, both songs were, quite frankly, just predictable.
Kind of lost the momentum.
Yeah, it was predictable, and I felt it was pretty boring. I mean, I didn't. There wasn't anything that was take home for me. I felt what they were going for. If I looked at the album in half and half, the latter half being far more depressive, far more slow, lyrically maybe, and atmosphere, but the track 5 and 6 just fell short.
I can see what they were trying to do there. I agree with you that it probably was a good position to solidify the interest in the album.
Yes.
However, my take is slightly different. Isn't it the wonderful thing? Art is subjective. I thought the first 4 songs were the strongest songs of the album.
Yeah.
I don't think that they lost anything by backing off. I think it was the right position for the soft song that builds up more slowly and doesn't have that hard-hitting effect.
My question is this, though. Do you need to have A Thorn of Wisdom followed by I Celebrate Your Skin, both really slow tracks,
are going to differ on I Celebrate Your Skin,
and then I Almost Loved You, which we'll get to, which I love the song, but
I think
3 slow songs together next to
put
each
the
other.
album in a different order, because with the 3 songs we're discussing, that they've certainly lost momentum.
Yes.
It was like the first 4 are fantastic, then it goes down, and you're like, okay, fine, fuck it, it's a My Dying Bride album. It's going down. It's like hearing what is it fucking thing on Like Gods of the Sun, that ghost thing. Man,
Anyway.
we couldn't even remember this album's name. Now you want to take me back 20 years. Okay. I actually think that they regained a little bit of momentum with I Celebrate Your Skin. There's certain parts of that song I really love. But only after several listens.
No, but
it's such a slow grower.
Exactly.
It's still growing on me. It's
Yeah.
like that's like a moss song.
Exactly. I mean, I love my slow doom, but these two songs were slow to the point of boring. And like, I felt if they were gonna be there, and maybe I would have felt differently if I don't listen to them back to back. It's kind of like an automatic skip for me. Going those two songs skip, and I listen to the last two songs.
You know what I liked about Celebrate Your Skin? It challenged the typical My Dying Bride writing style.
I hear what you're saying.
It did a very verse, chorus, but it was very straightforward, juxtaposed guttural chorus, long guttural chorus syllables, and a very sort of
Yeah.
But that's the point. When you write something bleak, you very often fall in the trap of being and that's why people don't get the genre that we're all waxing lyrical about. My mother, other than thinking I worship Satan and drink far too much, thinks, oh, it's so depressing. Meanwhile, you're getting all this beautiful sort of range of everything from emotion to, everything out of this. This is true art. I don't give a fuck if other people get it or not, which is what we're trying to get across to people. But I think maybe this might have fallen a little bit too far in the...
I agree. And I expected, as I said, I thought that you would...
No.
You
I
would
think
feel
when he goes into the guttural chorus and follows the guitar line exactly, I love that part. That was like, fuck yeah, it's not exactly dashboard bashing music, but I really loved it. And particularly what I loved about Celebrate Your Skin is it goes to the whole verse, chorus, and then boom, twist, surprise. It sort of meanders off into this fucking absolutely nothing, and you go, oh my god, is this ever going to end?
Yeah.
Which you should never do for a My Dying Bride song. It's like watching United win in '99. But I had to get that in sometime. Yours. You can edit that out if you want to. But and then he comes in with this absolutely beautiful, insistent, clean vocal line, and it works as a refrain, and it ends the song off beautifully, and I really liked it.
So yeah, I think we've hit the nail on the head there on those two songs.
And then they go even more bleak.
Yeah, and I gotta say that the song is so Byron-esque, so gloomily romantic. It is amazing.
Look, it's absolutely beautiful. If it was in another position in the album, I would have ended the album with this. Maybe
this song, I fully agree. I felt that track 8 Within a Sleeping Forest should have been moved to maybe a 6 or 7 spot.
Yeah.
And this track number 7, Almost Lovely, should have been the final song of the album. But I gotta say, for me, it's right up there for my Fallen Angel.
It is beautiful.
Lyrically, it is a poem. It is amazing.
I mean, what could be? First of all, have you ever? You hear My Dying Bride. Have you ever thought of the implications? This is actually the most tragic phrase ever fucking uttered. My dying bride, right? Then go, I almost loved you. I mean, fuck, that's got its own whole box of tragedy packed right into it.
Yeah, and I fully suggest that
it is fucking stunning.
Yeah, and I fully suggest to anybody who's listening to this right now, even if you don't go out and listen to the song itself, which you should, but if you don't, just do yourself a favor and just read the lyrics as a poem in itself.
Yeah, okay, go and read it, but don't do what I did when I was a youngster and try and pass off someone else's poetry as your own by reading lyrics to someone over the phone.
Oh, wow.
No, straight up. And I think it was my 21st birthday, the girlfriend I had then.
You didn't read a Hammer Smash Face?
No, that was entrails ripped from it. No. It was actually something off Paradise Lost Icon that I thought was pretty. Anyway, she totally bought it. Well,
I mean,
it's plagiarism, but whatever gets you nookie when you're young, I suppose. Right, so on to the last song.
Great song.
the most typical My Dying Bride song on the album. I felt.
I disagree. I felt the track number 2 was, I think it was, that I said, so that where they
Champagne Empty Halls.
Yeah, I felt.
And this one is called
Within a Sleeping Forest.
Yeah, but I think that they wrote those at the same time and they put them on opposite ends of the album to put enough space between them because they're that similar. That's what I would have done.
I do hear what you're saying. I mean, they're both strong songs. This one is, I think it's the longest song of the album. And I felt that maybe it was, they had a couple of riffs left over from other songs.
I think that's a bit harsh.
Well, no. I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm saying it's like when you're writing music and you, like, we have this issue all the time. It's like, oh well, you're messing around with the guitars in the practice room and somebody plays a fiddly bit over and you think, wow, that'd be cool.
Yeah, and then everything changes again.
Yeah, then everything changes again. I hate
you know
people
what
who do that.
You know what happens? No, well, fuck you. You know what happens when you've got a whole bunch of riffs that you don't know what to do with?
Yeah.
The Barguest of Whitby.
No.
Yes.
No, come on. No, I mean, I think the Barguest of Whitby was really cool. I thought
it was ambitious in a Swans kind of category, but I don't think they pulled it off.
I disagree that people listen to that album as if it is a musical album. You listen to it as if you're listening to a story.
Dude, I've got 2 different pressings of the damn thing. So don't come here. I'm the choir.
No.
I'm the vast choir. You don't have to convince me.
No, but I'm making that statement to
for
the masses.
To the listeners out there.
I mean, don't go out and listen to the Barguest of Whitby, assuming that it's going to be a like an album. It is a story with music, a musical accompaniment to
and
it.
dogs.
Yeah, and it's great. I really enjoyed it. And I highly recommend going out there and listening to it. I mean, there are a lot of My Dying Bride naysayers against it. I mean, and it's strange almost. I think, and I hate to say this about certain people that we might know, but I almost felt that there was a small little period where people couldn't see or didn't want to see beyond what they were used to with My Dying Bride in the Bargains with Me and the manuscript era.
Humankind.
I mean, manuscript was amazing. I prefer manuscript even to Map of All Our Failures.
It lacked a bit of production value though. Map of All Our Failures, better production. Although, name a memorable song.
Of the manuscript?
No, of Map of All Our Failures.
The Poorest Waltz?
Yeah, but that was the video.
No, I just really love that
song.
song.
No, I love that.
What is the first song?
It sucked though. You know what happened? I was writing lyrics for Ashes.
Yeah.
And I got this whole vibe of, it's the worst thing. It happens more than you think.
Yeah.
You get this radical lyrical line, and fucking Aaron, he writes something about dancing with a blind girl.
Yeah.
And I was like, balls! I had that. Now I can't use it.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure if you look hard enough, any lyrical idea that you've had is probably, or anybody's had, is pretty much.
Yeah, but I mean something very specific like that.
Yeah. Like,
I hate it. Nick Holmes does it all the time.
Yeah. Kneel Till Doomsday was a great song as well.
Yeah.
I mean that was.
Well, anything with a Neil in it.
But we're getting sidetracked now into
yeah. So we're on
Within a Sleeping Forest.
Within a Sleeping Forest. You know what? I don't like the title of the song. It's too Iced Earth Paramuseum kind of.
Really?
But I love this song.
No, yeah.
I think that song, if Cutting Room Floor, that song would have been on Turn Loose the Swans, Dreadful Hours.
Definitely.
Light at the End of the World, maybe. I don't think it would have made it onto Songs of Darkness.
No, different atmosphere.
I don't think it would have made it onto Line of Deathless Kings. Certainly not. Maybe even Eliza Sire. Who knows? But the point is, it is a strong My Dying Bride album song. A very strong album song.
I think because of the fact that they didn't, they had that little lull in the album with tracks 5 and 6. To end off with this song was the good move.
Yeah. Perhaps there wasn't another way to jig stuff around.
I don't know. I may be contradicting my earlier statement, but I think ideally I would have rather put keep track 5 where it is, move this one to 6, move 6 to 7, and 7
look,
to 8.
I mean, this conversation happens every summer when South Africa loses a test.
Positions.
No, Hashim Amlam's battery, whatever.
Yeah.
It's a great body of work.
Yeah.
I think it's not a roaring return to form because they were never out of form. However, that subtle difference between great albums and stupendous albums.
Yes.
I think the missing there hasn't been a missing ingredient in the same way that you don't know if something is missing until you hear it when it's back.
Yeah.
I think that the return of Calvin Robert Shaw has certainly benefited My Dying Bride overall in their sound, in their songwriting, in their production, and in their interpretation of their own music.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I mean, it goes without saying that he gets My Dying Bride. Fucking started it. So I mean, it was the best fit.
Look, everything is better. As wonderful as the guitar interplay between Hamish Glencross and Andrew Cragen has always been for the last 14 years or whatever, I think it's at times lacked this more subtle vision or the more subtle harmony that I think Calvin brings to it.
Well, I think what we should note is that it's one album. Let's
look. I'm probably just overexcited because he's back.
Yeah, let's see how it goes in the next couple of albums. And I think Hamish wrote "Songs of Darkness Was a Light," my favorite album. So
no one said he wrote it. I always thought that Andrew took up the writing cudgels from Calvin.
We're not sure, and if anybody out there actually has the answer to that question, who's the main songwriter?
Somebody phone Andrew. Tell him he owes me a pint.
Yeah. So overall, out of 10, what are you going to give this album?
Well, in the last Weeping Words, I gave Paradise Lost a
10.
A 10. But out of 10, this album, I'd have to be slightly more circumspect. Let's be adults about this and compare this to other My Dying Bride releases. In which case, I am going to give this a solid 8.5 because I think that this is 85% of their best, their absolute best.
Yeah, I think I hear you. When I thought about this, I thought of giving them an 8 out of 10. But that being said, it's got a very high chance of being my album of the year, actually.
Fuck off, have you not heard Subversive's album? Fuck off.
No. Alright. No, like, I think I preferred this to the Paradise Lost, the Shape of Despair, the big one, the Ghost album, all the big albums of the year. For me, this was probably my favorite. I'm still deciding on it, but I think this is an 8 out of 10, but a very strong 8 out of 10.
Look, for me, this coupled with Play Within by A Country Mile, my favorite albums of the year. Also because there hasn't been a Septic Flesh release this year.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different kettle of fish. Don't judge me. Don't judge me.
Oh, isn't there wrong Septic Flesh? I mean, hell, I love Septic Flesh. I mean, and I went to see them this year.
They get 9 out of 10s from me all the time.
Septic Flesh get 9 out of 10s by anybody. If you aren't giving Septic Flesh a 9 out of 10, well,
there's something wrong with you.
But that's a different thing.
Kettle of fish, yeah. Yeah, so a good solid 8.5. And to put it into perspective, I would give A Map of All Our Failures sort of like a 7, maybe. Yeah. 6.5, 7.
I agree. But we'll get to that if and when we eventually review that.
No,
album.
we're not going to go through the discography. Let's remain current. But I think my 10 for Paradise Lost was because of history.
So you...
No, absolutely. I'm not going to recant that at all.
The truth comes out.
I'd have to take a point of that album just because they released Crucify on the previous album, and that's like the greatest song ever. So, okay, that about brings us. We're wrapping up the album now. We'd just like to remind you all to come to our event, Symphony Infernus 3, which is happening on Saturday at Hectic on Hope.
The 12th of December?
Yes, the 12th of December. Very important date. Ask us on the night. We probably won't tell you then either. But we have an array of very experienced doom heads spinning tunes of every very specific subgenre of doom metal. And we have t-shirts and we have all sorts.
T-shirts, there's a very limited supply of t-shirts up for sale. We received quite a few orders and we put through a little bit extra just to sell on the night. They're going for 120 rand each, and there's purple.
It's a deal. It's a steal. It's the sale of the fucking century.
I think people, if they have any requests, you should get them through as soon as possible. Because I think the set lists are pretty much finalized for most people. We can see.
Well, you know what? Except for us old school DJs, those of us over 25 who don't predetermine our entire set and then hit a button and jump up and down behind a laptop.
So
I'm going to jump up and down just to make a point, but
sure. Let's not get into the age discussion here now.
You know what? Yaks are like the intro. I'm like the whole song.
Okay, cool, man. All right. I think that's it for this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and excuse all the horrible banter.
Well, I think that's why people, plug in.
Yeah.
Tune in at least for the horrible banter. Anyway, that's us, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Biggie. And this is me of the white flip flop. And we'll see you Saturday. Cheers.
Cheers.
For those of you who exist, I made for you 3 number 6 over the hill and under the ground. Sing as you like, there is no sound. For those of you who exist, I made for you 3 number 6.